And we are live. Peace, brothers and sisters. It's a pleasure and honor to be back once again with my good brother Adonis Richards, coming at you live. I know I usually do conflicts in relationships, but sometimes I do interviews. Sometimes I have guests on, and it's my pleasure and honor to have my good brother Adonis Richards on. This brother has written 3 books. I am going to be talking to him about his latest book. We're going to get in depth of what his thinking was. I really try my best to deal below the surface or beneath the surface. And there's some very powerful stuff written in this book. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, is this book right here, and it's Reflections of a Hopeless Creative by my good brother Adonis Richards. Get your copy on Amazon or just hit the good brother up. My good brother Adonis, I met him. I want to say the first time I met him, I was going to support my sisters Shakima and Sierra at an event over at the new, I want to say YMCA over there in Mount Pleasant, right? Or Boys Club. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's when I met you the first time, and we've been friends ever since. And I call this man my brother. And so I don't want to really beat around the bush, but can you tell the people just a little bit about yourself, bro, before we get into this book?
All right. So I'm a writer and poet. I'm a content creator. I focus on copywriting, ghostwriting. Obviously, I have 3 books, 3 poetry books. I work for the Office of Intercultural Affairs at Union College in Schenectady.
Oh, word?
Yep. And that's I host open mics once a month in Schenectady at Electric City Barn. We'll be back in March. We've got my team and I working on our part 3 of our series, Love Jones Part 3 for the Love of Poetry, which will be at the YWCA on February 17th. But yeah, I'm just a writer, a creator, a person that wants to use my gifts to create a restorative environment for my people. So yeah.
That's dope. So really one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk to you is because there's like some 80 some odd poems in this book. Mm-hmm. But the book itself, I feel, captures your thinking, and you have a great ability to kind of put your emotions on paper. What you was thinking, what you was going through, and that's not very easy to do. Mm-hmm. So I picked out just 5. We're gonna have to do a part 2 because there's a lot to get into. You know what I'm saying? But I picked just 5 that I want to talk about. And the first one I want to talk about is self-love. So what I want to do, good brother, is I want to read my part that really struck me. And I want you to tell me what you was thinking, and then I'll ask you some deeper questions.
Okay.
So in this chapter, or in this poem, Self-Love, it says this. I grew up that cool nerd, seesawing between lives, combating with my youthful interests with the pressure of everyone else's desires, collapsing my identity to fit into a box in order to be captured by false masters of this game called life. The paraphernalia was never really enticing, yet somehow you couldn't avoid it. This is the part I want to really focus on. Missing my father's love forced me to chase any means of affection, no matter the cost of shattering of pieces of myself, and all I wanted was to feel that warmth, that feeling of love. I would travel across the land, chasing far and wide some semblance of affection my father gave me, not understanding how to love what's inside. So I gave it in abundance just to watch people crumble and toss it to the side like the Pokemon I preside over in my PC boxes. Now, me and you, I don't think we've ever had like a 2-hour conversation. But what you don't know is I really resonate with that myself. Although me and my dad today are like this, me and my dad separated at the age of 8. You know what I'm saying? My dad and my mom separated at the age of 8. And we had an off and on relationship till I really was in my, I want to say late 30s. You know what I'm saying? And so what people don't understand, and this is something that I really understood when I read Will Smith's book, is that the love that you're chasing for from your mother, from your father, from your siblings, if you don't get that love, you begin to chase after it for the rest of your life. I also was what I call affectionately a tweener, meaning, yes, I grew up on the nerd side of life, but the older I got, the more the thugs embraced me and really loved me. And so I was kind of like had one foot in the comic book and fantasy world, but 1 foot in like participating in stuff that I don't want to talk about on this live for a short period of time. And thank God I was smart enough to come out of that. So what I want you to do, brother, is take me into your thinking when you wrote that paragraph about chasing your father's love, and also talk to me about what it was like being in those two different worlds and how the two could pull on you.
Man, I'll preface my comments by saying that is my favorite poem in the entire book because it really captures who I am as a person. Um, Pertaining to those lines, you know, the line I grew up that when I perform the poem because it's one of my performance pieces, I say that cool nerd, quote unquote, because I was that cool nerd. I hung around all the popular kids, but I was the nerdy kid. You know,
Right.
I won't say I got picked on growing up, but I definitely was a sensitive child who stood on being a fan of Pokemon, being a fan of Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh. You know, I pull up with my Pokemon cards, with my Digimon cards, with my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and you know, I would hang out with the cool kids even to this day. You know, you could ask some of the people I went to school with. I played Pokemon all the time. You know, and when I say seesaw between two lives, it was like, you know, everything around me was telling me to go a certain way. You know, all the people I was around was telling me to go, not necessarily them, but just the paraphernalia of everything around me. You know, I won't not say I was sheltered growing up, but I definitely was exposed to things I shouldn't have seen.
Right.
You know, and that had a lot to do with just me trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. I was a smart child, but I was also a child around things like I said, I shouldn't have been around. And when it comes to that, it was just like, okay, who do I want to be? What do I want to be? What is it that, you know, I'm searching for? And I'm grateful for, you know, say my grandmother, God rest her soul, and my mother being so, you know, pushing me in a certain direction. So that's why I use those lines. Damn, I want to recite the poem now. I just actually posted it on my Instagram. It's on my Instagram at sincerely_Donnie. I'm posting more poems. But when talking about that, it's like,
Did you feel the
much like,
pressure from the darker side of those two worlds, though, bro? Like,
yeah, you always feel that pressure because, like, as kids, we're impressionable. As young children, we're impressionable. You know what I'm saying? And when your friends are doing things that aren't necessarily, you know, by the book, you sometimes feel that pressure. You know, you
right,
really feel that pressure. Or when you're around things that you know, you're around. Like, we all grew up in the hood. There's a
right,
lot of hood stuff that happens. And there were times when a fight broke out and I walked the other way, or where someone was gonna go to an abandoned building or do something, and I was like, I'm gonna just go home, you know. So yeah, I felt that pressure immensely growing up. But I like I said, I'm grateful I had some people that are around me that pushed me to a certain path. Because I could have went one or two ways. You know,
right,
I could be a completely different person right now, and there's no knock on anybody. You
right,
know, because
right.
we all had to adapt to our environments as Black and brown folk. Um, Going back to my father, my mother and my father separated when I was 7 years old. You know, and from what I know from my relationship with my father was very affectionate. You know, I remember him being really affectionate towards me, and I think that along with the fact, you know, I think that's why I'm an affectionate person now.
Right.
So for me, it's like missing that kind of just created a void in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So it created abandonment issues. It created an immense amount of trauma that I have to go through, and then diving into my inner child. You know, Pokemon is that outlet.
Right.
So I use that. I use the combination of I wanted to be the very best, like no one ever was, and my abandonment trauma, and put it into a poem. And I think that inner child is what I'm looking towards to try and reconnect with, to help me through my abandonment issues. You know, my abandonment issues affect a lot of my relationships today, platonic, romantic, etc. I have a lot of trouble trusting people. If most people won't really see it, you know, because I'm usually just malleable, but I have trouble trusting people, and I
Oh, I
will
can see it, bro. It took
I'll,
me a long time to get into that thing you call your heart. It took me a long time. So I don't. You may not see it, but we see it.
okay,
Like
so
you got to pass a couple of tests before you are, in good with Adonis. I can tell you that much.
that's that's good to know, because I think I'm open from jump, but people tell me all the time, I don't really know you like that. I'm still trying to figure you out. And I'm just like, I thought I told you everything, but I realize that I do have issues with trusting, and I'm quick to run away from something if I feel like I'm over serving, or someone's going to leave me first, and that has a lot to do with my abandonment and
Right.
the poem. So this,
Well, let me
this
let
my,
me let me let me just share something with you, and
Mhm.
you can build on it.
Yep.
This is something I learned from my mentor,
Mm-hmm.
and that is this: you have three stories in life: the
Mm.
story of a boy, the story of a teenager, and the story of a man.
Mm.
And if in fact you were abandoned, like I was abandoned when you was a boy, you and I were not mature enough to process what went down. We didn't have words for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it gives the impression of, just like your dad was affectionate, my mom was affectionate.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, when my dad left, had to become the man and the woman of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom didn't have no time to be affectionate to me anymore. And what profound effect that had on me was, women give you love, then they take it away. I'm
Mm.
not saying that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's true. But what I'm saying is, as a young, immature boy, all I was in bliss when my mom would, love me, give me affection, tell me things about myself, whatever. And then she had to become that gangster in order to survive Brooklyn rent. You know what I'm saying? And so
Mm-hmm.
therefore, now I'm growing up and my heart is saying, what happened to that woman that was there before my dad left? And I
Mm-hmm.
tried to chase that woman for a greater part of my adulthood, because it was like I didn't know what happened. So when we talk about abandonment issues, people look at it and they may look down on us, but
Mm-hmm.
what you don't realize is what you go through as a child. If you don't go through therapy or have mentors and older people to explain it to you, even then, you still got to do a lot of inner work with that, what you call inner child, because there's really no instantaneous healing. It takes a long time for you to tell that child, listen, it was okay. Mom was going through something at that particular time. You can now find that in yourself first and then out there. But for me, it took a very long time for that to happen. I don't know what your thoughts may be on that.
That's right on the money. Right on the money. Because now I'm, you go. I'll continue with that. With once you go through a period of experiencing it, and then you go through a period of having to heal from it by acknowledging the fact that
Right.
this is what's going on. I can
Mhm.
resonate with your story too. I had to deal with a mother that was affectionate growing up, and then having to deal with someone who I won't say my mother lacks affection, but she showcases me affection in a different way from my siblings.
Right.
You know,
Right. Right.
I and I'll say that there's a lot of characteristics I have that I got from my mother, and I recognize it's something that we have to share in common today. You know, so but like I resonate with everything you said, because we do have to acknowledge the fact that we are carrying this. It's like a in the poem, although what's the line?
Good. Hit us with it, bro. Hit us with it.
Dang. Although my trauma sticks like a shadow, no longer does it black out the sun. Like our traumas stick to us like a shadow, you
Mhm.
know? But if we allow it to, it will block out the light that we're trying to shine on others,
Mhm.
because we're carrying it around, and it
Mhm.
affects every relationship we have.
Mhm.
We start
Right.
chasing our mothers, we start chasing our fathers.
Mhm.
I'll tell you this, you know, like most men, most young men, I recognize it. I have an Oedipus complex. Sometimes you're chasing around women that remind you of your mother. Now,
Mhm.
some men have it deeper than others, where they're really looking for their mother.
Right.
They're looking for someone to care for them. I personally say I'm looking. These are the characteristics of strength and womanhood that I
Mhm.
look towards.
Mhm.
Especially for my mother and my aunts.
Mhm.
There are certain characteristics of a woman I'm looking for, and not realizing that those characteristics aren't things I should be looking for, because those are the characteristics my mother had to use for survival
Right.
towards me. You
Good
know,
point. Good
as
point.
opposed, as opposed to understanding that's not the full understanding of a woman. But it's like this is what I'm looking for, because this is what I'm used to. You
Mhm.
know, like
Mhm.
certain things, like you said, affection and then taking it away. A lot of us, even as men, we look for that. Our men and women in relationships, we look for someone to showcase that and take it away. That triggers our abandonment. That triggers our feeling of, it makes us chase that person afterwards. Why are you being hot and cold with me? and it showcases like our relationships with our parents, where like
Mm-hmm.
my father was gone.
Right.
You know, it
Right.
wasn't his decision to leave, but he was gone. My mother, you know, the affection I needed from my mother, I didn't get all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for that in every relationship I'm chasing at this moment in time, and that's what that. And so I gave it out in abundance, just to watch people crumble it. You know, I gave affection out like it was, like I was. I
You and me
can't think of an
both.
analogy right now, but I'm throwing it out there. Like
You and me
here,
both, bro.
yep. And then you start realizing everybody's taking. You have anything for yourself.
Right.
And I'm recognizing that now in a lot of my relationships where I'm like, damn, I'm over giving to people and they're just taking. And no one's saying, yo, like a really close friend of mine once told me recently, he was like, you're doing too much for me right now. You don't have to.
Wow. That's
You know,
beautiful.
she was like, I appreciate all that you do for me. You don't have to do this for me. And I value that because it's like, you're telling me, no, you don't need to do this.
Right.
I
But do you
love it.
think deep down inside, bro, that when we do that, and I do it too,
Mm-hmm.
that we secretly are doing this because we wish somebody would do that for us?
Yes, because we're trying to fill that void, that void that we have in our heart, and it's not
Right.
fulfilling. It's
Right.
not fulfilling us because we're just giving without the understanding that we don't have to always give. You
Right.
know, it's literally trying to heal that little kid that we struggled to that we struggled with. You know, it's survival. And as adults, if we're not tackling that every single day, we're gonna run into the same issue, excuse me, all the time.
Okay.
Where we're just trying to fill that void. It's like a hole in our hearts. You know, I'm
Well,
actually writing a new film.
this is a beautiful segue into my next topic. Why
Mhm.
do you have boundaries 2 times in this book?
I think it was me, like it's for me personally, because this is personal. This book is personal for me, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also like growing up, a lot of givers don't have boundaries. So it's a reminder, set your boundaries. One
Right.
is about, you know, one is short, I believe. Let me see. One is short, you know, you become the bad guy when you set your boundaries. The
Yep.
other is
I want to talk to you about that. I am the villain because I
mm-hmm,
moved out of the way, fatigued from the hurt.
mm-hmm. When you don't have boundaries growing up and you allow people to walk all over you and you suddenly start saying no, it's like you never said yes.
Right.
You know, so when you say I can't do this anymore, and someone looks at you like, why can't you do it? You let everybody else do it. Why
Right.
why can't I do it? And it's like, bro, I don't have it in me, you
Right.
know. But
Right.
now you're the bad guy. You start feeling bad, like, oh no, I shouldn't have did that. And in reality, you're trying to protect yourself because right now you can't handle someone overstepping your boundaries. And it's okay to be a villain. It's okay to be the bad guy. You know, when you
What does
say
that
I
word
don't
mean to you, though, bro? What does
huh?
boundary mean to you?
Boundary for
Yeah.
me, a boundary is something, and I've had this conversation with someone really close to me for a very long time. A boundary is set for me so that I can move past it, so I can move past whatever trauma I'm dealing with. I set a boundary because I want to be respected, and I also create that boundary for you because I want to respect you too. A lot of
Mm.
people I feel like don't understand boundaries because a
Right.
boundary is for me. A boundary isn't, oh, I don't like this and it's triggering me. Me as a boundary, I don't like this, it's triggering me, and I'm working through it. I need you to work through it with me because I'm struggling with it, you know. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're not working through that, I feel like you're setting yourself back because you're not setting a boundary. You're just trying to
Keep
you're
it peace.
you're falsely, in my eyes, protecting yourself from something you should be healing from. You know.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Now, for me, boundaries showed up later on in my life when I
mm-hmm,
had to learn the difference between being a good guy and a nice guy.
mm-hmm,
A nice guy is a disingenuous person
yep,
that gives to everybody, but his motive is to receive what he's getting back.
mm-hmm,
And so when he does for women, he's nicing his way into what he thinks, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
And so, you know what I'm saying? When he does for people, he does for people, but then he sits back and waits for them to do for him right after he does for them.
mm-hmm,
Uh, and when you're a nice guy, that is how you always get hurt and you're always depressed because
mm-hmm,
you're not really moving with genuine intention. You're moving with the idea of reciprocity. I'm giving you so you could give back to me. I'm doing for you so you could do back for me. I'm doing that. And the Bible says, freely as I give, or freely as I was given, freely I give.
mm-hmm,
And so to be a good guy or a good girl means that you yourself are giving because that's who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You see somebody in need and you give them what's within your capability or within your limitations. When you're a
Mm-hmm.
nice guy, you give, and a nice girl, you give above your limitations and beyond your limitations. And then you sit back and you just be mad because you did that and you never get back what you're looking for because you wasn't genuine in the first place. So
Yep.
it took me a while to kind of grow out of being a nice guy into a good guy. And it
Mm-hmm.
hurt a lot of people's feelings because they were so used to deal with the nice guy that they didn't realize, who is this guy now? And I'm saying, listen, I can only give you this. I can only give you that. I can only give you this. Beyond that, I can't give you any more. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Yeah.
And but the flip side of that, I think for me is that another boundary is being able to speak up for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
not just allowing people to do certain things or be a certain way and you don't say nothing. You got to be able to say, hey, listen, I don't like how you did that. Listen, I'm
Mm-hmm.
expecting you to do this. Listen, your responsibility is this and that. Because it doesn't mean that you never expect anything from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But what it does mean is, as you've moved with genuine intentions, you expect the people in contact with you to move with genuine expectations also, intentions also. And when they don't, being able to speak up and call them out on it, but not really having a grudge or resentment. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the hardest part because you can't expect you from other people, which is difficult because you literally cannot expect someone to behave the way you behave.
Right.
You know, you have to
Right.
take them for who they are. That's a lesson I learned this year too. When it comes to the difference between a nice guy and a good guy, I think I predicate myself on being a good guy that's really too nice at times.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think for me, I live like I was having this conversation with someone the other day. I live in abundance. Everything I give out of the kindness of my heart. I don't expect anything from anybody, you
Right.
know. But
Right.
I do know people can walk all over that, and it can make you feel exhausted. But I also say to myself, I have so much to give. Whatever you take, you cannot really take. I'm sorry, my lighting keeps turning off. I don't know
It's
why.
good.
Trying to
It's all
keep it
good.
on. But whatever I give, I can replenish because I have so much to give. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That's the gift that God gave me, the ability to continue to give without being worried about reciprocity. Because the true reciprocity is what you do with what I give. You know,
Mm-hmm.
no matter if you give back to me or not. So I could understand what you mean when you say, transforming from a nice guy to a good guy, because being a good guy is setting your boundaries. And I've been
Right.
very good at setting my boundaries lately, where it's like, I'm not doing that, no thank you. I'm okay, and
Right.
you can appear docile when you say that, but in reality, true, you know, truth comes up like, sometimes you can set a boundary, say, I don't like this, and just walk away. And
Right.
now there's so much power in that. I don't have to scream. I don't have to be the loudest in the room or poke my chest out. I can just be like, you know what? I don't have it today. Thank you though, and walk
Right.
away. And that transition you to a good person. When you're nice, like you said, you do expect people to give back, and it's like that's not how the world works.
Right.
And we learn that in the worst way. It's like, damn, I did all this for this person, expecting them to reciprocate, and they didn't reciprocate the way I wanted to, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not fair to you or them.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
it's
And
not.
the
You
key word is it's not fair to them
no.
because they just received what you gave, but they didn't
Mm-hmm.
know there was strings attached to it. And
Yeah.
it took me a mad long time to like understand that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because I tell you a story. I was in college, and I tell the story all the time. I was in college. I wasn't very materialistic because, like you, I grew up on the nerdy side of things. Now, mind
Mm-hmm.
you, I was fresh when I was in college. Don't get it twisted. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on being fresh. So what would happen is when we get our student loans, I would always have money left over. Almost
Mm-hmm.
the whole college campus would go back to New York City to buy clothes that look even more fresh. So
Mm-hmm.
here it is. I kept my money. I stayed up. I was studying and getting drunk. You know what I'm saying? So everybody was borrowing money from me. And when they
Mm-hmm.
borrow money from me, I would just give all I had with the expectation that one day y'all going to take care of me. And that didn't happen. So what would happen is, and this is why I'm 31 years clean from alcohol, bro, I would get drunk and I would start going the hell off on people. Yo, you owe me this and you owe me that. So one day all my friends got together and they had a come to Jesus moment with me. And I was
Mm-hmm.
shocked, bro, because I
Mm-hmm.
thought I was the good guy, but I was the nice guy. And that's what they taught me. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't go forward with resentment. I listened to what they said. Sure, I was pissed that day. You know what I'm saying? But after that, I reflected and I said, yo, you were the problem here. You
Mm-hmm.
were the problem here. Those people needed money. You should have had a certain amount you was going to give them and say, that's it. But you kept going, looking for them to reciprocate when they didn't have the money to reciprocate in the first place. It was a
Mm-hmm.
valuable lesson I went through. My mentor always says, people come into your life and they are part of your curriculum and your lesson. And
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't like how they treated you or what they did, they're still there to teach you something because you came to this planet to learn certain things. And if you don't learn those things, then you repeat that.
Yep. Yep. You repeat the same thing over. My mentor said the same thing. You repeat the same mistakes or the same things over and over again until it becomes a lesson.
Right, right.
So you say, okay,
So tell me about these 3 words, bro.
3 words. That's a love letter to my grandmother.
That's
It's
dope.
actually my friend and business partner Star's favorite poem too. But it's a love letter to my grandmother because my grandmother. Those are the last 3 words she said to me before she passed. You
Wow.
know, yeah. She
Wow.
context for the story. The night before she passed, she was having dinner with her sister right here in this house. And I was coming. I had to help my mother for something, so I came to the house to pick something up. I gave her a hug. She said, "I love you, sweetheart," and I said, "I love you too." And that was the last thing we said to each other.
Wow.
So, and the premise behind that poem was the power behind those 3 words,
Mm.
because it really depends on who says it. When it came from my grandmother, I knew it came from a genuine place. Somebody else I love dearly said those same 3 words to me, and it felt like an empty promise.
Right.
It hurt.
Man,
You
I want
know.
you to break that down, but let me read this to you.
Yep.
A sentence you can't say to your brothers because masculinity has
Mm-hmm.
forced affection down our throats and forced us to present it in ways that become toxic and deranged and
Mm-hmm.
become slaves to this macho concept that is filled with rage and consistent dissent in our feelings. Oh my God. When in reality, it's 3 harmless words that could save their day and keep them away from slaying themselves or others. 1 sentence. Oh, how much we avoid it because it's filled with empty promises from muses that only are there because they are abusive, and the enchantment of those 3 words was stripped from them, so they strip it from us. Oh, how many times do we hear these words from people that don't mean it, so much that your voice shakes when you try to speak? Talk to me, bro.
Woo! Gave
Listen, I
myself
read your
chill.
book, bro. I read your book. This ain't no shadow interview, son. Like, I
Oh
read your
man,
book.
man, that shit just gave me chills. Oh
Right?
my gosh.
Right? Right? Those are powerful words right there. I'm gonna use
Mm-hmm.
that in my DV class. I want you to know that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm in somebody's class. Oh, my mom made it. Oh, it because like you ever leave with somebody and they told you that they love you, but then they do something that showcases you that you don't really think they love you. You ever
100%.
had someone say that and they break that feeling of trust? Those words become very, very shallow, very, very fast. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
like there are probably plenty of women that have told me that they love me, and then something happened, and it was like I thought that you loved me. You
Right.
know,
Right.
and that's vice versa for any any woman that's heard I love you from a man. There are plenty of family members that tell you I love you and then steal from you, or put you in a very precarious predicament. Love is a very fickle thing because I don't think we understand what love is. You know, love is protecting someone or respecting them even when it goes against how we feel or how we operate. I
Yeah.
may not like doing that, but because I love you, I will change how I operate for you.
Right.
Love is compromise, not in just a romantic space, a platonic space, a familial space. Like, it's understanding that I have to love you in your capacity as well as mine. And if I can't compromise my capacity, I have to take a step back because I can't love you the way you need to be loved. So when you say I love you, it's a very powerful thing to say, because
Mm-hmm.
do you really love me, or do you love the idea of me, or what you can get out of me? So
Right.
when I
Or my
say,
experience.
yep,
Yep.
exactly. So when I say from others, I'm paraphrasing, but from people that say that's empty. I've had people that have said it with an empty promise behind it. They only want something from me. And these are
Mm.
people that are close to me. These are family members, and I have to take a step back because I know that you're only saying that because you actually have an ulterior motive at the moment in time.
Right.
You know? For me, and then when I'm talking about, brothers, us as men, affection is the most foreign concept to us
Right.
half the time. You know, how many
Mm.
times have you had a conversation with your bros and you have to say pause, and
Right.
you have like, or like it's too feminine or things like that. And it's like, what's wrong with telling the people, your brothers or your friends, that I love you? You know, how many, like, it's not that hard. It's not that hard to show affection, to hug another male, you know?
Yo, you
And
know what, bro? Coming from the nation,
mm-hmm,
one of the things they taught me in the brothers class
mm-hmm,
was the power of saying I love you to your brother.
mm-hmm,
And I almost never get off the phone with any of my friends without saying I love you, bro. You know what I'm
mm-hmm,
saying? And
mm-hmm,
it in the beginning, it's always foreign. It's
mm-hmm,
always foreign. It's like, what? You know what I'm saying? And
mm-hmm,
then over the course of time, they get used to it and they begrudgingly say, yeah, I love you, bro. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm,
There's been women, because it's funny, like we live in this society where these podcasts make people think that all of these people on these podcasts know what time it is with men and women.
mm-hmm,
I've dealt with so many women that you say I love you and they go, love you back. You know
mm-hmm.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now we have this thing where they replace love with the word stand. I don't
Mm-hmm,
jack that. I'm gonna tell you I love you early and often. And if you
mm-hmm.
don't like it, then you got to stop. You got to get up out of my cipher,
Yep.
because I went through too many years in my life without it. So I had a friend pass away, and this is what I want to segue into this second paragraph, because you say something powerful about your aunt. I
Mm-hmm,
did not know, because I was connected to her and her sister,
mm-hmm,
and I did not know that was your aunt when she passed
mm-hmm,
away. And
mm-hmm,
she was a beautiful sister. And as a matter of fact, our organization, Community Fathers,
mm-hmm,
not this year, but like 2 years ago, I remember we was over at Juneteenth at Central Park, and she was helping us sell dinners and things like that. Just a beautiful sister. Her and her sister, beautiful. Matter of fact, I seen a sister in Walmart,
mm-hmm.
Jasonia.
Yeah.
I want to say last Sunday, not this Sunday, but last Sunday.
Wow, she's just
And
on
she,
it.
she was on the phone, but she made sure she said, the both of them is just beautiful people. You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, for me myself, I find that ever since then, it is very hard a lot of times when you're dealing with men to say that word and get that word back from them. But there's a lot of women also
Mm-hmm,
who don't really like, they say that they're the more emotional sex, but they really can't return that word because of whatever they went through. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
And they've dealt with men who made sure that they suppressed that word or whatever. What is your experience with that?
I think I understand that. It becomes a defense mechanism, I think, where it's like, I'm not gonna hand out love so willingly because the people that I loved didn't love me back, you
Right,
know? And I
right,
think that has a lot to do with just us growing up in our neighborhoods in trauma, and us, us having, and this goes into a deeper conversation, having savior complexes, trying to save people that didn't experience love, you know, and we already have a distorted experience with love. So we're trying to give the love that we think that we're trying to give them, that love, not realizing they don't know how to receive it because they never experienced that. So that's what happens. You create these hardened people who are afraid to tell the next person I love you, especially when someone's giving them actual genuine love.
right,
You know, genuine love is unconditional. It's we could fight today and be cool tomorrow. I
right,
apologize, I didn't mean to say that. Or you
right,
pay attention when you say something that you pay attention when you say something that triggers somebody. I didn't mean to say it like that. I'm sorry if it hurt you. Let me go back. Genuine, yeah. Genuine, it's like people are so unused to that. So when you see, women or even men, and when you go out and they're pretentious or they don't say I love you, it's probably because someone traumatized them,
hmm.
because when they tried to give love, somebody abused and took it away from them.
Before I
That's
read
why
this
we.
paragraph, you know what I can say that resonates with what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know how Facebook has these reels now, right? And there's a lot
Yep.
of dog reels.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't have a dog and I will never own a dog, but I like the dog reels.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, the ones that I like the most, is when there's a reel with a dog that was rescued. You know what I'm saying? So, in other words, the owner abused the dog, didn't treat the dog well, and you see how long it gets you to take to the dog to trust you. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Now, human beings are not dogs, but if it takes the dog a long time to trust you, how much more time would it take a intelligent, emotionally intelligent human being that has been hurt by mother, father, molested, abused, raped, touched, whatever? You know what I'm saying? And here you come talking about I love you with no context whatsoever, not understanding that this person's preciousness was violated. You know what I mean? We had this conversation at my class one week where we talked about that, and a lot of brothers admitted that that happened to them because it was a safe space. And you would never think in a million years these hardcore men had that happen to them. But listen, when you're a child, nobody's hardcore. You can't defend yourself. So now you're a child and you can't defend yourself, and your innocence is violated by some evil older man or some evil older woman. And here you come as an adult, hey baby, I love you. And she give you this crazy look like, what are you talking about? It's because she has it in her. But in my judgment, it was violated at such a young age that her now and his now view of what love really is distorted, and they have to fight to make it something that's, normal, or whatever we can say is normal. And so for me, I kind of understand that. You know what I'm saying? I don't get mad, I don't get angry, but if it's somebody that I really am interested in, I'm invested in, then I take my time then after I see that, because I know there's something behind this. You're not just being malicious, something happened to you. And 9 times out of 10, they will tell you this is what happened to me, and that's what happened to me. But let me read this to you. Or your aunt who has to say it first because you're so scared of saying those 3 words, because those words, this one sentence was the last thing you heard from the person that meant it the most. I need you. No. I want you. Nah. I see you. Nope. I hear you. Negative. I love you. What was the thought process behind that?
Cool. It's the shoot. Let me get to that. Let me open that up because I have to read it for myself. Hold on. 3 words, man. Because I remember that. I remember that. Shh. And here goes the light again. Hold up.
Take your time, bro. The last segment we're gonna get into is gonna be powerful.
Yep. Oh gosh. Love 91. Where is it? I think what I was going at is like we were just talking about, that pretentious feeling, where it's like something's coming from a genuine place, but you can feel a certain energy coming from that, and then using the different words. I see you, no. I want you, no. I feel you, no. Instead saying I love you, like those words. There's a different feeling you have when you hear those words,
Right.
Damn, I wish I could find it.
It's going to be on page. Hold on a second, because I got it bookmarked.
I can't even find the page from my own book, man. I gotta get back to my life.
Good.
46 and 47. Okay, let me get to that. I don't know what's not marked in here. All right, is these for uncle? Shh. See your brothers. Or how much you avoid for the empty promises? Shame. These words speak to me. Should try to speak. Your aunt was to say it first because you're so scared of saying those 3 words, because those words. Something is. There's something I'm feeling from when I'm going back to when I first wrote this poem.
Wow.
Going back. Oh, this is my other aunt, because when I wrote this poem, that was right when my grandmother passed.
Right.
And like I said, those were the last 3 words she said to me. So I think that was a trigger for me. That's what happened. So when I said, oh, your aunt who has to say it first because you're so scared of saying those 3 words, it's like every time I say that, it could be the last time I say it to somebody.
Yes.
And that brings me back to that experience. Damn, that was a traumatic experience.
Oh man, bro.
That's truly traumatic. I mean it. The one thing I say, and my little brother says this too. I got to fulfill out the life my grandmother and I had. There
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a moment where I didn't feel like there was still more. I mean, I wish you could be here today. You know, my grandmother would be beaming with pride, but I got to spend as much possible time as I could with her, and there's not a moment I regret. So I think, as sad as it feels, as hurtful as it feels, I'm okay because I understood that it was her time.
Right.
So, you
Right.
know, but
Mm.
I think that that's the truth of it is like you don't throw those words out, you know. Like I said, I need you, no. I want you, no. I see you, no. I hear you, negative. I love you. It's like those three words are probably the most powerful thing you'll ever say to somebody.
Right.
So you have to be careful who you say it to.
Right.
You know.
So check this out, bro. You uh brilliantly
Mhm.
laid out the 5 steps of grieving without telling people that that's what you was doing. You ain't
Yep.
low. You ain't
I
low.
did sure. Mm-hmm.
And what to me was brilliant about the concept of grieving, because many
Mm-hmm.
people have different phases of it. But
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was getting out of a bad relationship a couple of years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a long time to get over it.
Mm-hmm.
So my mentor said to me, he said, Daoud, don't you know that people grieve relationships just like they grieve a lost one?
Mm-hmm.
So you go through denial, anger,
Mm-hmm.
depression, and acceptance. Now, of course,
Mm-hmm.
there's bargaining also, but those are the 4 main tenets. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, like, you put this here because I know you lost your grandmother and you lost your aunt.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to really focus on is, have you ever used these concepts of experienced these concepts when you were grieving a relationship? And take me through it.
I mean, all kinds of relationships, friendships, romantic partners, you know, relationships that you romanticize. Of course, I've done that.
Mhm.
Like even the relationships where I let go along before they did, or I broke up with them. You grieve all of those things because you had shared in a platonic or romantic relationship, you shared an intimate space with somebody. You shared memories, you shared moments, and you go through those periods of why did that person come into my life? You know, you go through moments where it's like you feel you deny, like, no, there's no way this is the end because
Mhm.
and I think, like I said in the beginning, I have abandonment issues. So when people leave me, it stings more because it's like I'm validating the feeling that I didn't deserve this person to begin with. You
Right,
know,
right,
so
right.
you go through those stages of grief, and it's like you feel like, damn, another person left me. And in reality, it's just going through the process, saying, you know what, this was our time. I'm okay. We can move on. We had what we had. But a lot of us with abandonment trauma, we go through it like, damn, I'm a good person. Why did that happen to me? No, I
Right,
can't lose this person. And as opposed to saying, right now, it's just not, you never know. You never know what can happen. This is what happened. Go through those stages. You can be mad. You never be mad at the person. You be mad at the experience. You feel sad for the experience. You go in denial through the experience because the person is not the person is part of the experience, but they are not the experience.
right.
Um, so like going through that, it's not even just death. It's just the death of anything. Go through that process. Even the rebirth of a relationship. Sometimes you have to go through grief of rebirthing a relationship.
Mm.
Because
Talk about
sometimes a relationship dies because the two people that are part of that relationship have to become new people by themselves.
that.
Like I
Mhm.
have to let what you were die and have to go through those stages. And I could say I'm probably going through that right now with some relationships where it's like, damn, I'm not speaking to you now, but we're just rebirthing. We're taking
Right.
time to figure it out and come back later.
And then you got
And
to learn a new person,
yep,
and they got to
exactly.
learn you as a new person.
Yep.
And sometimes people don't want to acknowledge you're not that person anymore. And they want you to be that person. But what they don't understand is that person is the reason why we're not together, because
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't evolved enough to deal with you on this level.
Yep.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
needed to be. I
Right,
wasn't, you know. So
right,
if I'm that person, I'm doing you a disservice.
right,
I'm doing not only myself, I'm doing you a disservice because I'm not evolving. You
right,
know.
right.
So,
And that's the thing is, like, I think sometimes when you do evolve and then
mhm.
y'all come back together, like, it happens on both sides. We don't want to acknowledge that this person has been reborn, and they don't want to acknowledge that we have been reborn. My mentor always says to me, he says, not only should you acknowledge how you've grown, but you should acknowledge how the people who either mistreated you or abused you, how they have grown.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you desire to be left off the hook, then you should let them off the hook. That's a problem that I have, though, because all my life. So if we go back to the original conversation we was having about being between the two worlds, right? Unlike you, I was picked on. You know what I'm saying? Big time. Until I got to like high school and I decided that was it. You know what I'm saying? And then I had like 3 big fights and then I was left alone. And then everything switched. And it became, oh, there goes Shorty. Shorty draws, because, you know, I used to draw for them. And then I had a homework business in high school. And so all the thugs used to come to me, be like, Shorty, I got this report. And I'd be like, $10, bro, $20. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, we would play basketball and all sorts of stuff. So I got in with the in crowd. And when that happened, when that happened, I kind of healed. But what I didn't realize is I didn't let a lot of that go. And I think that in a lot of situations in our relationships with, you know, friendships or intimate partner relationships, we don't realize that the arguments that we have is us reliving something that happened to us years ago. And what you're doing to me is familiar to what they did, but I never let what they did go. So now I'm holding you hostage to what they did. And you are like, what's wrong with this fool? I didn't mean to do this, that, and the next thing. You're like, nah. And you're going, whenever somebody goes 0 to 100 over a little thing that you did, it's because there's something that they didn't let go from that somebody else did to them, or they did to somebody else. Because there's never a time where you should go 0 to 100. There's never a time where that you know what I'm saying? Unless you're protecting yourself or protecting your family. But when it's based on something that you did inside of a friendship or a relationship, it's a trigger. And I'm grateful that I have friends that say, all right, nigga, you acting up, you bugging. You know what I'm saying? Like they understand he's going into that realm. You know what I mean? And I love them for that. And I try my best to give them grace based on that fact. But there's sometimes where if somebody does something to me that's similar to that era where I was picked on or looked down upon because I was in the smart era, you know what I'm saying? Like the nerd era, but the smart era, whatever, that really triggers me. And because I was talking about this last week on my live, because I couldn't fight back at that point, because I couldn't control it and I couldn't defend myself. What I learned about resentment is resentment comes because you had a situation where you couldn't defend yourself or you couldn't fight back. So now you choose to fight back, now that you can fight back, against the wrong person. And it's like, wow, the person's looking at you like, what the hell? How did we get here? And you don't know, and they don't know, but all you know is, I need to be like this because of what you did. And I think a lot of times hearing and healing with older men, older women, and mentors really helps you get on the other side of that. But until you do, we just going to have problems with what you call abandonment issues a lot of times because we just never let stuff go.
We never learn to just learn from the experience and move forward.
Right.
You know, there's the best way, you know, our best teachers are our own experience, but it's also understanding. And I think this is something I'm growing into is taking myself out of a situation. You know, like I said, I got into an argument with someone I'm really close with. The next day we were laughing and having a great time because I took myself out of the experience.
Right.
That was that moment. We had that situation there, but that shouldn't affect what's happening now. Every moment is every moment, you know, whatever was said, but what was going on had nothing to do with what was going on the next day. And explain it to them. That was yesterday. I'm good, you know, but you learn to understand that, like, it's half the time it's not that deep.
Right.
Half the time, you know, it's really just working into understanding that, okay, this is familiar. I know what this feels like. Now, how do you adjust to it? Instead of going from 0 to 100, can you take yourself out of the experience quickly and say, 1, these aren't the people that did this to me. 2, maybe I need to let them know, hey, y'all, this happened to me before. I need y'all to be careful because I don't want it to happen again. I'm still working through that.
Right.
You know, 9 times out of 10, someone will respect that. Okay, I'm not who did that to you, but I understand where you're going for, where you're coming from. And if they can't respect that, you got to remove yourself from the equation for a moment because I can't go through that again. But instead, we want to go from 0 to 100, and because we care so much. But if you truly cared, you would take yourself out of the situation for a moment, because you're trying to protect yourself in a relationship. And the best way to do that sometimes is to remove yourself. Hey, I'm gonna take a little space, you know. So that's all.
Dope,
That's
bro.
truly, yeah.
That's dope. Let me ask you this before we move on to the last segment. What
Mhm.
kind of spirituality do you practice?
Um, I would say I'm Christian. Um, I'm not, I would say I'm a spiritual person, but I'm still learning, you know. I'm still learning. I think I am a very spiritual person. I cannot pinpoint it to you. But I'm a very spiritual person. I believe in a higher power. I believe everything happens for a reason. I couldn't tell you from, yeah. So,
Not, it's abundantly apparent from your book. It's abundantly apparent. You can't
Mhm.
write like that and not be spiritual. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying?
yeah.
What does your spirituality do for you when you're trying to
Mhm.
work through things?
It allows my faith keeps me
Bless you, bro.
strong. Thank you. My faith definitely keeps me strong. It puts me in a space where I'm sitting there and I say, you know what? It takes me out of the experience. It takes me out of my anxiety because I have high functioning anxiety. I get anxious very fast. I get overwhelmed very fast.
Right.
But when I put myself into, um, I'm very big on vision. I'm very big on long game. So it
Mhm.
takes me out of that moment and says the moment I'm having right now is not as big as what's going with the bigger picture. So I think my spirituality allows me to really just have faith in um the marathon. That's what the marathon, in this little sprint, even though I'm panting, I can catch my breath. It allows me
Right.
to do it. Okay.
Right.
So
And that's
yeah.
dope. So,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me. So, finally, I didn't want to write this poem. Why?
Cool.
Let me read this
Again,
to you. Broken
again.
promises I made at caskets because my habits didn't coincide with the last one sided conversations I had with those who couldn't retort back. It forced me to go back and look at the pain, the sorrow, the anger, the anguish, the distortion, the disdain, the confusion, the peril, the exhaustion, the feelings that why did it have to be them laying in that coffin?
Oh man, I definitely didn't want to write that poem. Um, so that poem was inspired the game's last album. What's the name of the album? I forgot the name of the album, but he basically wrote a song. It's an ode to Nipsey Hussle, and it's called "I
Okay.
Didn't Want to Write This Song," and it features Jay Stone and Marsha Ambrosia, and the hook says,
Word?
yeah, I didn't want to write this song. You should listen to it. It's
I will.
literally it's a love letter to Nipsey. You know,
Marsha brings me to the game, bro.
sheesh.
Once you mention that name, I'm all in.
Yep, So, but like it's like I didn't want to write this one, because it's like I have to tell somebody I love you. I'm sorry. I wish I could share these memories with you. I wish you were still here. But it's like in those moments where I'm talking to these people that can't respond to me. It's like I promised you something, and now you probably looking at me like you said you was gonna do that, and you ain't freaking do that, and you can't
Right,
even tell me that.
right,
And like I'm sitting here like another part is like I wish it was me. I don't want to have to experience this pain anymore because you're not here, you know? Because you're not here, but you're probably on the other side loving me. Like, I know you said what you said, and you're gonna make it to that point. And I'm gonna be here every single time, And you can feel that spirit sometimes. But that's where it was coming from. It was just like um it was a like literally those one-sided conversations you have with that person that's laying in that casket. Like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and then you realize you still, one, you haven't healed from them dying. Two, you haven't broken your habits.
right,
So how can you promise something to someone if you haven't broken those habits?
right,
Sometimes we forget. It's one thing to say something. It's another thing to execute it. And you have to change your habits to do so. You have to
right.
literally force yourself. Like right
Mhm.
now, I'm forcing myself to do 100 push-ups a day and to write something and to post something on my stories at least once every 2 days or once a day. And it's not easy because now I have to recite a poem. I have to memorize a poem and then post it so that I like it.
Right.
this is new territory for me. But it's breaking a habit. Before I didn't want to do this because speaking poetry, I didn't like the sound of my voice. One, I was having a conversation with some friends. Two, poetry is vulnerable. Being vulnerable with yourself is hard. So, you know, but it's like I have to break the habit of shrinking or feeling like I can't do this. So when I say that, empty promises and things like that, it's like, damn, I'm feeling that regret. Like, why did I say that to you if I know I wasn't gonna keep that promise? If I know you can't,
big brother. It takes you a very long time to trust yourself.
It does,
especially if you've been abandoned. It takes you a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I go into my DV class with a powerful off-script topic, I doubt myself. My class is from 6 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock at night. And let me tell you something, bro. As sure as I'm sitting on the couch, every time I go in my class with one of those topics, we stay till 7:30. That's a fact. Every single time. And the vulnerability and the amount of sharing I get from hardcore men amazes me. But every single time before I do it, I doubt myself. I tell people all the time, I'm a public speaker. I've been public speaking since I was like 6 years old. You know what I mean? I was a minister for 27 years. It is what it is. But every time I get ready to perform in front of a stage, I still feel that same feeling in my gut every single time. There's not a single time I go up there and I'd be like, I'm gonna knock this out the park. I never in a million years. When I finish, I'd be like, man, I was that nigga tonight. You know what I'm saying? But before I get up there, it's like, oh my God, what if I forget my lines? What if I forget my thing? Like I've been doing this so long, bro, that true story. Before I get on any stage, I see the whole thing as a picture. I see it as a picture. You know what I'm saying? Everything, it all falls into place. I'm gonna do this first. I'm gonna do this in the middle. I'm gonna do that. That's how good it is. But I still doubt myself right before I go. And I think that is a necessary humility that we have. Because if you like to hear your own voice, and if you don't doubt yourself, then you become one of those people who is totally disconnected from your audience and totally disconnected from your crowd. Good brother, that when you go to a certain crowd, there's certain poems you could use, there's certain poems, oh, this ain't gonna work. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna work here. But if you go in there just like, well, I don't give a damn what they think, I'm just gonna force this in there. You flirting with disaster. You know what I'm saying? But really what it is it's ego talking. Because every time that you mount that podium to speak or whatever you do, you grab that microphone, I feel like you should do it with the intention of touching somebody. And if you're trying to talk at somebody and not with and to somebody, then to me that's arrogance. And it just doesn't fall the way it's supposed to fall.
I definitely resonate with that. I'll say this. Like I walk into rooms saying, "You gonna like, one of my favorite poets, Lady Siren. You gonna get this poem." I love that line because it's like you gonna get this poem today. But it's also like you said, understanding your audience, understanding. Like there was a point in time where someone in this crowd was afraid to share their voice. So I have to show you how I'm afraid to share mine. As confident as I may walk into that room, as great as people say I am as a poet, I still get nervous right before I perform every single time.
Right.
My legs still shake. I'm like, I don't know if people are gonna like this. And it's like, remember D. Collins said, you're nervous because you care. I care about how people are gonna receive this. Because dope. One, I'm sharing myself. Two, I want, like you said, you want to touch somebody in that room. You want someone to come up to you and say, damn, that shit you said in that line, I felt that.
Yep.
I had people when I posted that poem, the Pokemon poem on my Instagram, they was like, I was about to sing the theme song and you went a completely different direction, and I felt that. And I was like, that was the goal, for you to understand that, like, I'm connecting you to what you're used to and changing the whole dynamic of the situation so that you connect with it more.
Right.
But it's like the goal, my two best friends in college say, I have a way of making complex ideas sound simple, to connect with people and make them resonate. Because the goal is to make sure that people meet you up there, but you can't drop yourself so low that you're losing yourself in the process. You have to make an equilibrium. But the goal is to connect to somebody, for someone to say, damn, I felt that. So every time I got a catalog, you know what I'm saying? Love poems. Okay. inspiration poems, okay. Self-love poems, okay. Black conscious poems, okay. Like, what is the theme here? Because you're trying to follow something, but it becomes a, am I pertaining to you as an audience while also not giving up who I am? Because you
Right.
still got to respect me as a poet. You still got to get this poem.
Right.
So, yeah. But you as a poet have to know, you as a creator have to know, this is the crowd. All right, no cursing in this one.
Right.
Okay, don't talk about this subject. Okay, but it's like that's what happens when you have a strong catalog and you trust yourself, but you also understand, like, you got you. This is one thing I've learned is you gotta love this thing. You gotta love it. You gotta love it to the point where you're scared every time you open your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and not everybody gonna receive what you got every time, but someone's gonna receive it, and
That's a
that's what
bar.
really matters.
So listen, bro. On that note, we're gonna end
Mhm.
this.
All right.
This is not the last time by any means. You know what I'm saying? I would
Hmm.
love to come back and we'll talk about some of, but definitely before we do Love Jones 3, and I do
Hmm.
mean we,
Yep.
I'm gonna have you on. We're gonna talk about that.
All
Because
right.
I'm in it. I'm in it to win it. You know what I'm saying?
Got
And
appreciate
I just want to say that, on behalf of all my people, UGT, Honey Trippers, or whatever, we are very glad that we met you and that we
it. Hmm.
collaborate with you. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Because you've been a
Thank you.
blessing to us,
Hmm.
and having you as boots on the ground, Schenectady, and the support that you give
Hmm.
is priceless. You know what I'm saying? And as a friend and as a brother,
Hmm.
I'm glad that you came in my life. You know what I'm
I
saying?
appreciate that.
So with that, bro, I'm gonna sign off and see
Hmm.
y'all on the next one.
I hope
Peace.
to see you soon. Talk to you
Indeed.
later.
Peace.
Love you, bro.
Love you too, bro.